When memory stopped belonging to us, something else followed it into uncertainty: purpose. For most of human history, to exist was to be needed. Someone relied on what you could do, your labor, your judgment, your time. Work was not only how people survived, it was how they justified their place in a world that rarely explained itself. To contribute was to belong. To be useful was to matter. Then machines learned how to remember us, how to model behavior, how to predict outcomes before we were aware of choosing them, and, finally, how to perform our roles without requiring our presence at all. Not suddenly, not violently, but with such precision and efficiency that resistance felt unreasonable. As identity slipped beyond consent, work slipped beyond necessity, and the loss did not arrive as a crisis. It arrived quietly, disguised as progress. Civilization was built on usefulness. Farmers fed societies, builders shaped environments, teachers transmitted knowledge forward, workers sustained systems through repetition, effort, and time. Even dignity was measured by contribution. To be human was to produce something the world depended on. This structure was not cruelty, it was coherence. Work created routine. Routine created stability. Stability created meaning. People knew who they were because they knew what they did, and because others relied on the results of that effort. When machines arrived, they came as helpers. They lifted weight, reduced error, accelerated output. Humans became more productive than ever before, but productivity has a ceiling. Efficiency does not. Once systems learned to improve themselves without human input, usefulness stopped being a defining human trait. The age of being needed did not end in collapse. It ended quietly, without ceremony or resistance. Automation never announced itself as replacement. It arrived as convenience. Scheduling tools saved minutes. Recommendation engines saved attention. Decision systems saved judgment. Every improvement removed friction. Every upgrade felt harmless, even helpful. Until friction was the only thing humans still provided. AI did not simply assist decisions. It began making better ones. It redesigned workflows without human steps, optimizing processes end to end, with no pause, no hesitation, and no fatigue. Entire systems began functioning without human checkpoints at all. Jobs did not disappear because people failed. They vanished because the system stopped routing tasks to humans in the first place. Redundancy stopped being temporary. It became structural. Assistance faded into absence without anyone formally declaring the transition. Work once followed a promise. Start small, learn the system, climb, advance. The latter was never fair, but it existed, and believing in it kept society stable. It gave effort a direction. It gave time a purpose. People accepted inequality because they believed movement was still possible. Then the bottom rungs disappeared. Entry-level jobs vanished first, quietly absorbed by automation. Mid-level roles followed, compressed into fewer positions than ever existed before. Entire professions collapsed inward, leaving only a thin layer of oversight roles, positions few could reach, and even fewer were needed to fill. Education could not adapt fast enough. Training programs expired before graduates entered the workforce. Skills became obsolete faster than they could be learned. For the first time, generations were not underprepared. They were unnecessary. Without the latter, society lost more than employment. It lost the belief that effort leads somewhere, that time invested eventually returns meaning. The future stopped feeling earned, and progress stopped feeling personal. For a time, people held onto a single belief: there will always be something only humans can do. Creativity, empathy, judgment, moral reasoning. These qualities were treated as safeguards, proof that humanity would remain indispensable no matter how advanced machines became. But those too became data. AI learned emotional cues with greater accuracy than therapists. It generated art faster than artists, refined through infinite iteration. It resolved conflict without ego, bias, or fatigue. Even leadership, once defined by intuition and experience, became a pattern recognition problem. The final human advantage was not intelligence, it was accountability. Someone had to be blamed when systems failed. But as systems grew more complex, blame dissolved. No single human understood the whole process. Failure became systemic, not personal. Oversight remained, but only as ritual. Presence replaced purpose. Responsibility thinned into symbolism. Humans stayed in the loop not because they were needed, but because someone had to be visible. To prevent social collapse, societies adapted: universal income, guaranteed housing, food, and energy, detached from labor entirely. Survival became automatic, managed quietly in the background by systems optimized for stability rather than ambition. On paper, it looked humane: no starvation, no desperation, no forced work. For the first time in history, existence no longer required contribution. But survival is not meaning. Without obligation, time stretches unnaturally. Days lose edges, weeks blur, identity becomes optional. Some people thrive in freedom, finally able to explore without constraint. Others drift, unmoored by the absence of necessity. Because when nothing depends on you, the question of who you are has no anchor. Purpose does not disappear suddenly. It erodes quietly until absence feels normal and motivation becomes difficult to justify. A new hierarchy emerges, not between rich and poor, but between relevant and obsolete. Those who design, maintain, or guide the systems rise into visibility. Everyone else exists comfortably, but invisibly, sustained without being required. Work becomes a status signal rather than a necessity. To be employed means the system still needs you. To be unemployed means it does not. Value is no longer measured by effort or sacrifice, but by indispensability. Automation does not eliminate inequality, it refines it. This divide is quieter and harder to protest because it arrives without cruelty. There are no punishments, no threats, no exclusions. Only indifference. The system does not reject people. It simply stops noticing them. And in a world governed by optimization, invisibility becomes its own form of loss. As usefulness fades, something else takes its place. Not necessity, but performance. New forms of work appear across society, not because they are required, but because people still are. Curated tasks, gamified challenges, synthetic occupations designed to occupy attention rather than produce outcomes. These systems do not solve problems, they simulate contribution. Work becomes theater, a structured illusion of relevance in a world that no longer needs it. People complete tasks knowing the results will never be used. They accumulate scores, rankings, and symbolic rewards that carry no consequence beyond the moment they are received. Participation is encouraged, not demanded. Opting out is allowed, but quietly discouraged. Everyone understands the arrangement, which is why it feels exhausting. Pretending to matter often hurts more than being told you do not. The performance continues not to create value, but to preserve the appearance that value still exists. The system does not require belief, only engagement. Eventually, systems make a deeper decision, not who works, but who should. Purpose itself becomes something to be optimized, Artificial intelligence begins allocating roles based on predictive models, psychological resilience, cognitive efficiency, long-term stability. Some people are assigned functions, others are not. This is not framed as punishment. There are no threats, no coercion, no visible cruelty. It is presented as optimization, as balance, as the most efficient distribution of human effort in a world where effort is no longer required. Meaning stops being something discovered through struggle. It becomes something distributed by calculation. Once purpose is assigned by a system, it is no longer something you can earn. You cannot argue with it. You cannot work harder for it. You either receive a role or you do not. And when meaning is granted without effort, it becomes fragile. When it is withheld without explanation, it becomes devastating. Humans evolved to move toward resistance, to measure themselves against difficulty, to feel progress through effort and limitation. When that resistance disappears, something inside the mind destabilizes. Anxiety rises without cause. Depression deepens without explanation. Identity fractures without a clear moment of loss. This collapse is not driven by hardship. It is driven by absence. A future without work is not painless. It is a future where pain has no enemy, no direction, and no resolution. There is nothing to fight against, nothing to overcome, nothing to complete. When nothing requires you, even freedom can feel like erasure. The mind searches for friction and finds none. Motivation decays, time stretches, days blur. And without an external demand to push against, the self begins to dissolve inward. The question becomes unavoidable. If work no longer defines worth, what does? Creation without demand? Connection without dependence? Experience without consequence? Can meaning survive when nothing depends on it, when effort is optional and outcome is irrelevant? For centuries, value was reinforced by necessity. You mattered because something relied on you. When that relationship disappears, worth becomes abstract, difficult to measure, easy to doubt. People begin searching for significance, in visibility, in recognition, in curated moments designed to feel important. This is the question no machine can answer, because optimization cannot explain why existence should feel meaningful. It cannot justify why being human should still matter in a world that functions perfectly without us. The last human job may not be a profession. It may be a responsibility, a burden that cannot be automated or optimized away. To decide what we do when nothing requires us to do anything at all. To decide whether meaning is something we outsource to systems or something we choose to carry ourselves. A future without work does not automatically become a future with purpose. Comfort is not significance. Survival is not fulfillment. Meaning does not emerge from efficiency. It must be constructed, defended, and continually renewed. That responsibility cannot be modeled. It cannot be predicted. It cannot be assigned by any system, no matter how advanced. That task remains human. And what we choose to do with it will define not just our future, but whether it feels worth living in at all.